I came home from work to find my landlord dumped my stuff outside. The sidewalk of shame. Marcus Reed was exhausted. 12 hours on his feet at the distribution warehouse in South Atlanta had drained every drop of strength from his body. His steel toe boots felt heavier than usual as he walked down Pinecrest Avenue, lunch pail swinging loosely in his hand. All he wanted was a shower, leftovers from last night, and silence. But as he turned the corner toward his apartment building, something felt wrong. A small crowd stood near the sidewalk. Cardboard boxes. A mattress. A familiar blue laundry basket. Marcus slowed. His heart began to pound. "No," he whispered. He took a few more steps, eyes scanning the ground. A cracked mirror. His coat. His shoes. His framed photo of his late mother, leaning against a trash bin. His entire life was sitting on the sidewalk. "Yo, ain't that your stuff?" a man from the neighborhood asked gently. Marcus dropped his lunch pail. It hit the pavement with a dull clatter. That's my bed," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "That's my stuff." He ran to the front of the building. The door to apartment 3B, his apartment, was locked. A new silver padlock hung where his key used to work. Taped to the door was a white sheet of paper. Evicted. Non-payment. Do not enter. Marcus stared at it like it was written in another language. "I paid," he whispered. "I paid last month." A woman nearby shook her head. "Your landlord came earlier today. Said you had 30 minutes to grab what you could. When you didn't show up, he put everything out." Marcus felt the ground tilt. "I was at work," he said. "He knows where I work." Silence swallowed him. He slid down the wall and sat on the concrete, head in his hands, surrounded by his belongings like a public exhibition of his failure. Cars passed. People stared. Some whispered. Others shook their heads and kept walking. Marcus Reed, 29 years old, full-time worker, never missed a shift, was officially homeless by sunset. Marcus pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and dialed the number he knew by heart. Straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. He stood up, anger mixing with disbelief, and walked toward the property office behind the building. The lights were on. The door was locked. He banged. "Mr. Lawson," Marcus shouted. "Open the door." No response. He saw movement inside. "Mr. Lawson, you can't do this," Marcus yelled. "This is illegal." The door cracked open just enough for the landlord's face to appear. White hair. Tight lips. No sympathy. "You were behind on rent," Lawson said coldly. "I was not," Marcus shot back. "I paid. I have receipts." Lawson shrugged. "Take it to court." "You put my things outside like trash," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "I wasn't even given notice." Lawson's eyes hardened. "You people always want special treatment." Marcus froze. "You people," he repeated. Lawson slammed the door. Marcus stood there, fists clenched, chest burning, not just from injustice, but from the familiar sting of being dismissed, dehumanized, erased. When he turned back to the sidewalk, the sun was setting, and his life was still on the curb. Night came quickly. Marcus tried calling friends. Most didn't answer. Some promised to call back. One sent a text. "Sorry, bro. Can't help right now." He sat on his mattress under a flickering streetlight, hugging his knees. A police car slowed down. The officer rolled down the window. "Sir, you can't sleep here." Marcus laughed bitterly. "I don't have anywhere else." The officer sighed. "I'll give you an hour." After the car left, Marcus finally did what he swore he wouldn't do. He called his older sister, Danielle. She answered immediately. "Marcus," she said, "why do you sound like that?" His voice cracked. "I don't have a place to stay tonight." Silence. "Where are you?" she asked. "Outside my apartment," he said. "Or what used to be my apartment." 20 minutes later, Danielle pulled up, jumped out of her car, and froze at the sight. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They did this to you?" Marcus nodded. She hugged him tightly. For the first time that day, he allowed himself to cry. But neither of them knew yet. This eviction wasn't just about rent. It was about power. And Marcus was about to fight back. Danielle's apartment was small but warm. The kind of place where love filled the corners money couldn't reach. Marcus sat on her couch, wrapped in an old blanket, staring at the wall while she paced the kitchen. "This is wrong," Danielle said for the 5th time. "He can't just throw you out like that." Marcus sighed. People like him don't care what's legal. They care about control. Danielle stopped pacing. "No." This time, he picked the wrong one. She handed Marcus a cup of tea. "You said you paid?" "Yes," Marcus replied immediately. "Every month. I paid March and April. I have the bank alerts." "Good," she said, "because tomorrow we go downtown." Marcus looked up. "Downtown?" "Legal aid," Danielle said firmly. "I worked too hard to watch my brother get erased." For the first time since that afternoon, Marcus felt something unfamiliar stir in his chest. Oh. The legal aid office smelled like old paper and determination. Posters on the walls read "Know your rights and housing is a human right." Marcus sat across from attorney Simone Harris, a sharp-eyed black woman in her late 30s who listened without interrupting. "So," Simone said finally, tapping her pen, "your landlord changed your locks, dumped your property, and posted an eviction notice without a court order?" "Yes," Marcus replied. She leaned back slowly. "That's an illegal self-help eviction." Danielle blinked. "Illegal?" Simone smiled slightly. "Very." Marcus's shoulders sagged with relief. "So, I didn't imagine it." "You didn't," Simone said. "And he broke the law in multiple ways." She slid a form across the desk. "We'll file an emergency motion. Best case, you're back in your apartment within days. Worst case, he pays." Marcus swallowed. He said to take it to court. Simone's eyes hardened. "Gladly." By the time they returned to Pinecrest Avenue, Marcus's belongings were gone. Every box, every bag, his mattress, even his mother's photo. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "No, no, no." A neighbor stepped forward. A truck came. "Your landlord's nephew," said he was clearing trash. Danielle cursed under her breath. "This man is digging his own grave." Marcus stared at the empty sidewalk, fists shaking. "That picture of my mom, that's all I had left of her." Danielle grabbed his hand. "We'll get it back. I promise." But that night, Marcus didn't sleep. Because injustice doesn't just take homes. It takes dignity. The courtroom was colder than Marcus expected. Mr. Lawson sat across the room, arms crossed, smug and confident. Simone stood beside Marcus, calm but fierce. "Your Honor," she said, "this landlord conducted an illegal eviction, destroyed personal property, and targeted my client while knowing he was at work." Lawson scoffed. "He didn't pay rent." Simone calmly held up the receipts. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Lawson, care to explain this?" Lawson's jaw tightened. I must have made a mistake." The judge's voice sharpened. "Mistakes don't involve padlocks and dumpsters." Marcus felt his heart pound. For once, someone in power was listening. Word spread. Tenants began talking. A single mother spoke up about threats. An elderly man described sudden fees. A young couple shared pictures of notices taped overnight. By the end of the week, Lawson wasn't just facing Marcus. He was facing everyone. A protest formed outside the building. Signs read, "Stop illegal evictions, tenants have rights, we work. We deserve homes." Marcus stood in the crowd, microphone shaking in his hand. "I'm not special," he said. "I'm just tired of being treated like disposable labor." The crowd roared. and Lawson watched from behind his office window, afraid. The judge's ruling came on a Wednesday morning. Marcus sat beside Simone, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. Danielle sat behind him, whispering prayers under her breath. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr. Lawson," he said, "your actions were not only unethical, they were unlawful." Lawson shifted in his seat. "You conducted an illegal eviction, destroyed personal property, and violated tenant protection laws. This court orders full compensation for damages, temporary housing costs, and emotional distress." Marcus's breath caught. "And," the judge continued, "this case will be referred to the Housing Authority for further investigation." Lawson's face drained of color. The gavel came down. Marcus didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just closed his eyes. Because after weeks of humiliation, someone had finally said, "You were wronged." Winning didn't feel like Marcus imagined. Yes, he received compensation. Yes, Lawson lost his rental license pending investigation. But Marcus still woke up some nights sweating, reliving the sight of his belongings on the curb. He moved into a short-term apartment paid for by the settlement. It was clean, quiet, and empty. One evening, Danielle visited. "You okay?" she asked softly. Marcus shrugged. "I keep thinking, what if I didn't have you?" Danielle sat beside him. "That's why this fight mattered. Too many people don't." Marcus nodded slowly. That night, he pulled out a notebook and wrote at the top of the page, "No one should lose their home in silence." Simone called him a week later. "You should think about sharing your story," she said. "We're forming a tenant advocacy group." Marcus laughed nervously. "I'm not a speaker." "You don't need to be," Simone replied. "You're real." At the first meeting, Marcus sat quietly, until a young woman spoke. "They changed my locks while my kids were at school," she said, crying. Something broke open in Marcus. He stood. "I know that feeling," he said. "And it doesn't mean you failed. It means someone abused power." The room listened. And Marcus realized something powerful. His voice had weight now. 3 months later, Marcus received an email from work. Promotion approved. Warehouse operations supervisor. He stared at the screen. Hard work still mattered. Integrity still mattered. On his first day in the new role, Marcus stood taller, not because life was perfect, but because he survived what tried to break him. That evening, he signed a lease. A new place. His name on the door. No fear. Before moving in, he placed one thing carefully on the shelf. A framed photo of his mother, recovered, returned, restored. "I didn't quit," he whispered. A year later, Pinecrest Avenue looked different. New management. Tenant meetings. Repairs actually made. Marcus walked past the building one afternoon, not in anger, but in closure. Some places shape you. Others test you. And some teach you who you are. Marcus stood on his balcony as the city lights flickered on. Home wasn't just a roof anymore. It was safety, dignity, voice. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to the advocacy group. "If you're facing eviction tonight, call us. You are not alone." And for the first time since his life was dumped on a sidewalk, Marcus Reed felt whole. Justice didn't erase the memory. Marcus lay awake in the temporary apartment, staring at the ceiling fan as it clicked unevenly. Every sound reminded him of instability, the hum of traffic, footsteps in the hallway, a door slamming somewhere far away. He sat up and rubbed his face. 4 weeks, his body had lived in survival mode. Even now, with the court ruling in his favor, his nervous system hadn't caught up. He reached for his phone and scrolled through old photos. His mother. Him in his first work uniform. The tiny apartment he once complained about. "Funny how you miss what you didn't protect enough," he murmured. The eviction hadn't just taken his home. It stripped him down to questions he avoided for years. How close am I to the edge? How many people live one paycheck away from the sidewalk? That night, Marcus decided something quietly, without applause. He would never be passive again. The warehouse didn't stop because Marcus was homeless. Orders still needed fulfillment. Forklifts still beeped. Supervisors still barked instructions. But people noticed the change in him. "You good, Reed?" his coworker Jamal asked during break. Marcus hesitated. "I lost my place." Jamal's face hardened. "Man, that happened to my cousin. Same kind of landlord." Word spread faster than Marcus expected. By the end of the shift, his manager, Mr. Collins, called him into the office. "I heard what happened," Collins said carefully. "I won't pretend I understand it fully. But I see your work ethic." Marcus said nothing. "We're opening a supervisor position soon," Collins continued. "I want you to apply." Marcus blinked. "Sir, You earned it," Collins said. "And don't worry. Your hours are protected." Marcus walked out stunned. Sometimes, survival opens doors pain never could. Mr. Lawson wasn't always cruel. That's what made him dangerous. Simone uncovered records, settlements, sealed complaints, silenced tenants. He targeted people who didn't have lawyers, savings, or connections. Mostly black tenants. Mostly working class. Mostly quiet. At a housing authority hearing, a retired schoolteacher testified. "He told me I was lucky to live there," she said, voice trembling. "Then he raised my rent 3 times in 1 year." Another tenant stood. "He said if I complained, immigration would be called, even though I'm a citizen." Gasps filled the room. Lawson stared straight ahead, jaw locked. For the first time in decades, the mask slipped. Danielle sat with Marcus one evening, folding laundry. "You know," she said, "when you called me that night, I was scared." Marcus looked up. "For me." "For you," she nodded. "But also because I knew how easy it could have been me." She explained how close she once came to eviction after a medical emergency. "I survived because someone helped," she said softly. "That's why I couldn't let you fall." Marcus reached for her hand. Family, he learned, wasn't about fixing everything. It was about refusing to look away. The tenant advocacy group doubled in size within weeks. They met in church basements, community centers, even parking lots. Marcus listened more than he spoke. A delivery driver. A nursing assistant. A college student. Different lives. Same fear. "You don't sound angry," one woman told him. "I am," Marcus replied. "But anger doesn't build systems. Truth does." They drafted flyers, shared legal contacts, created a hotline. The group wasn't loud. It was steady. And steady scared people in power more than noise ever could. The final ruling came quietly. No cameras. No crowd. Just paperwork. Mr. Lawson's rental license was revoked. Fines imposed. Properties frozen pending investigation. Outside the courthouse, Simone turned to Marcus. "You did this," she said. Marcus shook his head. "We did." Lawson walked past them without speaking. No apology. No accountability. Just consequences. And that was enough. Marcus's new apartment wasn't fancy, but it was his. He unpacked slowly, intentionally. When he hung the photo of his mother, he spoke out loud. "They tried to break me," he said, "but I learned where I stand." He stood at the window that night, city lights glowing. Home wasn't about permanence anymore. It was about protection. Marcus stood before a room of city officials and tenants. "My story isn't rare," he said calmly. "It's just documented." Silence followed. "People don't fail housing systems," he continued. "Housing systems fail people." A councilwoman nodded slowly. Change didn't come fast, but it came. One evening, Marcus walked past Pinecrest Avenue again. New locks. New management. New rules. He smiled, not in victory, but in release. Some people lose homes. Others find purpose. Marcus Reed found both. Marcus hadn't dreamed about his mother in years. But that night, she came to him the way she used to, standing in the kitchen of their old apartment, arms crossed, head tilted, watching him with that look that mixed pride and warning. "Boy," she said, "don't let shame make you quiet." Marcus woke up breathing hard. His mother, Ruth Reed, had raised him alone after his father disappeared when Marcus was 9. She cleaned offices at night and cooked breakfast before school. She taught him one lesson more than any other. Never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve space in this world. Sitting on the edge of his bed, Marcus whispered, "I hear you." And for the first time since she passed, the memory didn't hurt. It guided. Her name was Alicia Brown. She sat in the back during the tenant meeting, notebook on her lap, listening carefully but speaking little. Marcus noticed her because she didn't look defeated like many others. She looked focused. After the meeting, she approached him. "You explain things clearly," she said. "Not like a politician." Marcus smiled faintly. "I'm not one. I'm a housing counselor," Alicia said. "I help people before eviction happens." That caught his attention. They talked longer than either expected, about systems, survival, exhaustion, and the quiet cost of being strong all the time. As she left, Alicia turned back. "Don't stop," she said. "People need voices that don't sound rehearsed." Marcus watched her go, something warm settling in his chest. Not every day was progress. One afternoon, Marcus broke down in the break room at work. No warning. No build-up. Just tears. Jamal stood guard at the door while Marcus tried to breathe. "I hate that it still affects me," Marcus admitted. "Like I wasn't enough." Jamal shook his head. "Man, trauma doesn't leave on schedule." That sentence stayed with Marcus. Healing wasn't linear. It was honest. Just when things felt stable, Lawson filed an appeal. Simone called Marcus late. "He's trying to reduce damages," she said, "and discredit testimony." Marcus closed his eyes. "So it's not over." "It rarely is," Simone replied. "But this time, we're ready." The appeal reopened wounds. Lawson's lawyer implied Marcus was irresponsible, that he mismanaged funds, that he was habitually late. Marcus sat through it all, jaw clenched, until Simone stood. "This case is not about rent," she said. "It's about a man who thought he could erase another human being without consequence." The judge didn't rule immediately, but the tone had shifted. Again. Marcus and Alicia met for coffee. She stirred her drink nervously. "I almost lost my apartment once," she admitted. "That's why I do this work." Marcus nodded. "People assume helpers don't need help." Alicia met his eyes. "I don't need saving. I just understand." That honesty pulled them closer than flirting ever could. They weren't rushing. They were recognizing. The appeal failed. Not with drama, but with finality. The judge cited clear abuse of authority and documented retaliation. Lawson's remaining properties were placed under oversight. Simone called Marcus with the news. "It's finished," she said. Marcus sat quietly for a long time after hanging up. Then he exhaled. The tenant advocacy group became a non-profit. Marcus didn't lead it alone. He refused. They created workshops, emergency funds, partnerships. Alicia joined officially. One night after a long meeting, she leaned against Marcus's car. "You ever think about how different your life could have gone?" she asked. Marcus smiled. "Every day." "And?" she pressed. "I wouldn't change this version," he said. She smiled back. At the warehouse, Marcus addressed his team for the first time as supervisor. "I won't pretend work fixes everything," he said. "But respect matters. And I'll always protect dignity here." The room erupted in applause. Marcus swallowed hard. Leadership wasn't about authority. It was about memory. Marcus and Alicia didn't move fast. They moved honestly. When she finally stayed the night, Marcus told her everything. Fear, shame, anger, growth. Alicia listened. No judgment. No rush. Just presence. That felt like home too. Marcus wrote a letter and placed it behind her photo. They tried to take my home. Instead, I found my voice. You taught me that. He smiled. Marcus stood on Pinecrest Avenue one last time. Not to remember loss, but to honor transformation. Some stories begin in houses. Others begin on sidewalks. This one began with injustice and ended with purpose.